This week, we talk about Pokerface, The Calling, and a Royal Rumble 23 review. And now your host, Mike Daglio.
What is up, team? Welcome to K&M Geekly. Just a sneak peek at two geeks talking about some of the things that got them through their week and are getting them through this time. Keith, getting them through is the highlight of the day because you're feeling a little under the weather. I'm feeling a little, I don't want to say hungover, but let's just say I had a solid day of entertainment yesterday that ended with some cocktails, making this Monday a little sleepy.
Oh, all right.
I have to say, and it kind of ties into some of the things we're going to talk about today, I went to an escape room yesterday.
Did you really?
Yeah, well,
You
first
do the weirdest stuff,
I
man.
do. Well, first I took my nieces to the mall, and
Because you have family you communicate with.
yes, I do. I take my nieces to the mall. I'm going to put your gain up a little bit, buddy.
You always want me to be louder, but
No. I'm
always
putting you
too
up on
loud.
my side.
Okay, all right.
I feel good about it now. I feel like we're in a good place. Nobody cares.
Okay.
So
Look, I have to marvel for a second at the fact that we accidentally matched. We're both sort of plaid today.
That's true.
Neither one of us are ever plaid, and yet we were both kind of plaid today.
I'm a flannel guy. I don't usually wear it on air because, patterns. Anyway, I go to the mall and with my teenage nieces, and I made a decision that they were with a couple of friends, and I was like, you know what? They don't need to follow me around. Like they would be okay if they were walking around the mall themselves, even though it's one of the biggest malls in America, and stranger danger. But anyway, so I gave them the option though. I was like, yo, if you guys want to hang out with me and Aunt Jen, you're welcome to, or you can go do your thing. We'll meet back at 3:00, whatever. Really thinking in the back of my head, Keith, that they would choose me because they love me.
Buddy.
My nieces love me, man. But
How old are they now?
12 and 13.
No, they don't love you anymore. You got like 5 years, they're gonna love you again.
I really thought that I would give them the sense of autonomy, and then they would choose to hang out with their uncle that they love so much.
Nobody.
Yeah. So they they chose to leave me, Keith. It was sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really sad.
I'm sorry, but this is a sunrise sunset moment. You know, there's that starts in middle school. They're gonna come back. Like they're gonna come back from college, and they're gonna be so excited to see you.
It's true. So anyway, after that, we met up some friends and we did an escape room. Man, it's just if you go to a good escape room, and you're with a good group of people. It was me, my friend, who's a brilliant man, and his wife, who's also brilliant, and me and Jen, who are we're smart, but we're not like PhD brilliant like them. But still, we brought our puzzle solving to the game. We had our own perspective. We had a couple of aha moments. We had a lot of laughs. We got in just at the nick of time. We didn't need any hints. It was like the perfectly curated escape room situation and fun activity. And then we had dinner. It was like a great night to the point where I was like, I'm gonna have some beers. And so I did. And I'm not really a heavy drinker, so it was I kind of paid a price. Hey, CEO Jen's here with some coffee. Jen, I was just talking about the escape room.
Escape room.
Oh my gosh, so much fun.
So much fun.
What's up, Jen?
You want to pop in and say hey?
We got to do a Geekly escape room. Hi, Keith.
That would be great. I would
Right?
actually love to do that.
They have a D&D one.
They do have a D&D one.
That's it. We got to do it.
Right.
I know you can't hear me, Jen. So
She
I'm
can.
just going to say
I
straight
can't.
in.
I'm like-
She gets some bleed.
Oh, you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
All right, go
Love
do
it.
your
Okay,
tapes.
have
All
fun.
right, Jen has a career.
Must be nice.
Yeah, it must be nice. So anyway, we did that, and it was a lot of fun. We came home just for the last few minutes of the Grammys, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. But I wanted to hear how you're feeling, buddy. I heard you're a little under the weather.
Got a little cold. Got a little bit of something. So if I'm a little, so if I get tongue-tied and sound incompetent, it's just normal. It's nothing to do with the cold whatsoever. But I'm doing fine. In fact, this is, how we did that episode about our New Year's resolutions, and we had some things that we wanted to do. And you know what, Mike?
Accountability time, Keith. Accountability
time. I followed through because number one on my list was putting out some of my work, some of my writing that I've just got this huge library of stuff that I don't share with anybody, and I've got this show that I'm trying to get up on its feet, and I'm like, I think I need to start showing it to people and putting it out there, and the 10 people who care a great deal, and that's wonderful, and I appreciate that. But I dropped a a demo of one of the songs from my show, The Road Home, on my personal channel at Keith Varney. So if you would like to actually hear the demo from the song, it's called Crossroad. And I also did a half-hour long video explaining a bunch of different things. Partly how I approached it from a compositional and storytelling perspective, but also a lot about how I produced the demo on Pro Tools and using VSTs and the Contact Suite. So if you're interested in the music technology part of it, or in just the music and something from an original musical or an original demo, or just want to hear me sing, you can find it. We'll link it below. But my YouTube channel is just at Keith Varney. So pretty easy to find. Just give it a search there. You can check out all of my stuff. So and I haven't, if you look at that channel, I haven't posted like a non-joke song in like 10 years. So it was time for me to finally start putting that out there. And it was fun and it was interesting. I don't know if anybody cared, but I felt good about fulfilling that piece of accountability that I made a promise to you here on this show.
Yeah, and I watched it, which, let me tell you, I didn't even finish Keith's book, but I watched that whole 20-minute video because it is actually really fascinating because, we live in a time where you can kind of produce a television show, produce an album, do all these things yourself, and it can seem overly complicated at times, and trust me, if you want to get into the weeds for any of this stuff, you can. And we have.
For sure.
But you can also, it's also not insane. It's not nothing is as complicated as you think. And there are plugins and effects processing. What you can do, I'll tell this quick story, then we'll get going. I know, here we are. A couple years ago, right before the pandemic, I was playing in this band. I got asked to play in this band for the singer, Not North is the name of the act. And he needed a second guitar player. No, just Not North.
Or East?
No, David Allen Thornton, great guy.
West?
He also writes
West.
Also a musical theater composer. In fact, your brother-in-law has sung a bunch of his demos.
Right on.
And anyway, so he asked me if I'd play like backup, second rhythm guitar, electric guitar, in this like heavy kind of rock band. And I was like, yeah, sure, can't wait. With some excellent lead guitar players, great band. Anyway, not the point. The point is that I didn't have any effects, right? I haven't played in a band since high school. So I pulled out my like Digitech guitar effects pedal from my closet to play in this band. And I was like, the first rehearsal, I was like, oh, this sounds like absolute garbage in comparison to just like the normal pedals everybody's got. But I didn't want to put a lot of money into pedals because I'm not playing live anymore. Right. Electric guitar anyway. So, Keith, on my iPad, I like got a little converter that you can plug your electric guitar into your iPad, and I downloaded a bunch of VSTs, which are like virtual software tracks, or I don't even know what it stands for, to be honest. I just made that up.
Yeah, I mean, basically virtual instruments, but it's more than that, right?
Yeah,
because it's also effects and plugins. It's not just the instruments.
So I just downloaded like a fuzz effect, a compressor, a ripper, a delay effect, like the basics. And let me tell you, through my iPad and then into an amp that was mic'd into the PA, incredible, far superior to like the $800 Digitech pedal I had from '96 or whatever.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, and so many. I was actually watching a video the other day about how many giant bands, like all the people who just won Grammys, they can't perform live without their laptops.
Yeah.
Because so much of what they do is now sequenced, and they've got all stuff, everything bounced in, and all this other stuff that is processed to the laptop.
Well, even the cruise shows I play on, which are like there's a stigma to these cruise shows, but they're high budget. A lot of them are very high budget acts. We're all
stigma me that cash, Mike.
Yeah, we're all tracked through. We've got a click in our ears, and there's things happening and sweeteners, and it's pretty incredible. Not to mention, I mean, I have the Waves pack, and they have sampled and completely replicated the entire Abbey Road Studios main channel panel, mix board.
Yeah.
It's really insane. It's all analog. It's crazy what you can do. Anyway, speaking of those acts, Keith, I wanted to quickly talk about the Grammys last night, because I watched them, and then I skimmed through what I had missed when I was gone, and I wanted to If I can figure out how to do this again, everything's out of sync.
There we
There
go.
And the Grammys was here. So, first things first. One thing, I won't get into the weeds of award shows and whether we're like anybody cares what these people have to say politically and just celebrities kissing each other's butts. And that's for a different kind of show. I wanted to actually talk about the performances and the music and the show as a whole. One thing that consistently baffles me, but it makes sense when you're trying to rein in a 4-hour or you're trying to I think about the technicality of trying to produce a 4-hour show with multiple musical acts, switching stages live, how to mix that, how to do it behind the scenes while presenters are doing their thing. And what is generally pretty ubiquitous is they can never, the sound is always messed up. You can tell the singers are always messing with their inner ears. They can't hear themselves. The mix is weird. They've never got it right, really. It's generally pretty bad. Last night was actually pretty good, but what they didn't get right, and I talked about this, still, we've moved on to like 7.1, 13 channel Dolby Surround. I mean, audio has really come a long way. Basic broadcast television has just moved into 5.1, right? They've just come out of stereo and they're trying. Let me tell you, the surround mix for this show was bad. Me and Jen were like, you couldn't place where it just was an echo chamber. So I eventually had to turn surround off to just go back to stereo channeling, and it sounded fine again. And it's funny to me, as much as technology is, we could, if I wanted to, we could produce this show in Dolby Surround real easily. It's a waste of time, but it's funny that the Grammys, the celebration of music and mixing, can't get it.
I mean, yes, although to be fair, you and I, we've done almost 300 episodes, and
You're right, yeah.
We literally have to figure it out again before every episode.
It's true.
And we're just doing what, friggin' mono?
Yeah.
And once you start getting into the surround sound channels, it's an exponential change in complexity.
Yeah.
Right. It's not twice as complex. It's exponentially more complex. And so once you really start thinking about each one of these decisions, it goes out like a tree root where like, oh, well, now that just like that one little hit on the thing, well, now I have to think about that in 17 different ways and route it, which is already incredibly.
And then you got to think, you can't even start to think about what the consumer, the end level consumer is, because, all of these sound bars or whatever system you have has all of these virtual things you can add to it, like, oh, boost up. If you don't have height channels, we can simulate it, and then that all muddies the mix and stuff. So
you've got to make it sound good.
Right.
On that and your grandmother's 13-inch old RCA from 1992.
Well, and the other thing you hear about, too, that'll segue into the one point I want to make about the Grammys, is you hear all these stories about these great mashups or these great duets that you'll never hear again, and blah, blah. But I hear all these stories about how there's no rehearsal, right? They'll schedule rehearsal time, but such and such star, like Beyonce. Well, I don't want to say Beyonce because who knows? She's pretty good pro, but like Kid Rock ain't coming to rehearsal to do a mashup with Bob, Bob Dylan's son or whatever, like weird stuff that happens. You're like, they're not rehearsing, and so a lot of times it's a cluster hump. But that brings me to my point. Y'all know the roots. Y'all know Questlove. Questlove, if you haven't seen that documentary, we talked about it briefly, that Soul documentary. It's on Netflix. Oh, I forget what it was called. Questlove documentary, Google it. It's an incredible documentary. This man is music, is hip-hop. He knows everyone. And so they're celebrating the 50th anniversary of hip-hop this year. And they kind of did this surprise thing that I hadn't heard about. And what he did is Questlove somehow brought together like 30 hip-hop performers from the 60s through to present day. I'd
love to see his contact list on his phone.
Created like a 15-minute mashup, Keith, of them all coming in, weaving out, doing like a hook and a chorus of their song and dropping it, and then this other guy coming in, and it was all lit. The product, how it was sequenced and rehearsed, I'll never understand. It could only take a guy like this who knows everybody and people respect to put it together. Especially, I don't think it's a surprise. The hip hop community, not particularly known for their there's some beefs and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like it's not all like love and friendship. It's a hard hitting kind of genre of music. It was flawless, flawless entrances, flawless syncopation. I mean, Busta Rhymes came out and rapped faster than I've ever heard a human being rap in his life. And then, don't push me, cause I'm close. I mean, I respected it a musical level, a production level, just a sheer gaw level. And it was an LL Cool J kind of started and ended it and then ended up performing in it. I'm sure it's on YouTube by now. Go check out the hip-hop mashup from last night on the Grammys. It was, yeah,
you know,
Beyonce won a bunch of stuff. Stuff happened, but that was the highlight of the Grammys.
I think we see the advantages, of just like towering genius, right, from Questlove and the Roots, but also they produce live television every night.
Mm-hmm.
And so their entire occupation is to throw things together in 10 seconds and make it sound great.
Yeah, also a shout out on those lines. So they obviously had to take like a little bit of time off from Jimmy Fallon to do this. And so for the one night of tapings they missed, do you know what they did, which I thought was pretty baller too? They had Paul Schaefer, who hasn't been in the NBC studio for 30 years because of that whole thing, came and reunited his entire band.
Oh, that's awesome.
Went into the NBC studios and did that one night, and that was a great episode of Jimmy Fallon.
I've seen more of, because I don't watch a lot of the late shows, but when I did, I was always a Letterman guy.
Yeah, 100%.
So a CBS Letterman guy, because it started when I was like old enough to watch that. So
I think
anyway,
I always watch for the Roots. I love their musical stuff. Colbert is kind of my central guy, but we'll talk. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, of the Today guys, I'm a Colbert guy.
So anyway. let's jump into. I had briefly mentioned I had started Tar, and what a compositional masterpiece I thought it was, and how it's a reminder of like just what a well-crafted film is. I thought it was. I'm sure it was spectacular in the theater. I watched it on my home theater. I'm sure you did as well, Keith. We didn't get your thoughts because you hadn't started it. First, I'm just going to put my last 2 cents in and I'll let you talk.
Yeah.
Kate Blanchett. The first thing to remember is that she has her English accent is perfect here. Her character portrayal is so specific, so obsessive, and so scary in so many ways. Some of the dialogue about music and about what we should expect from our art. There's so many ideas. It doesn't strongly point you in any direction. It's just presenting ideas, and it's a character study. It's just a wonderful, harrowing piece of art. I just adore it. Keith, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so just roughly, if you haven't seen it, it's about a super famous, super successful orchestral conductor who is, accused of, sexual malfeasance or exploiting her position, and but it's not. It's such a slow burn about that it is. We're basically, spoiler alert, I guess. We're watching her incredibly tightly controlled world slowly chip away and crumble as we begin to see her self-destruction and her own, and her own choices catch up with her that she isn't able to prevent herself from doing even as they're crumbling. And so it's a really fascinating character study. I think it's very nuanced and it's very subtle. And in a lot of ways, I think there can be an accusation that there's a little bit of a both sidesiness to her culpability, but I don't think is necessarily unrealistic that, she is, as we it never really comes down super hard on what side, but we know that she is culpable in some fashion. Mm-hmm. But she's also has moments, where she is unfairly treated while she's unfairly treating other people, and it's a complex way to navigate that whole world. But what I was drawn to, because I am not in this world, right? This is not what I do. This is not. However, I did spend 4 years in this world, right, in the super high-end classical musician world, and it is such a specific world and politics and way of navigating stuff, and the tiers of the orchestra and how orchestras are constructed, and who has power and who is what is the so many all of these hierarchical power structures within classical music, within an orchestra, within a whatever, within a marriage, within all of these things, that again, I was only in there for 4 years, so I can't speak to all of it, but it felt very real. It felt very realistic. This is it matched my understanding of that world. So clearly this was not some lazy, just I'm going to spend a half an hour in this world, try to figure it out, and then we'll do this character study. Well, then it is very much in that world. And it was really fascinating. I felt sucked right back into it. And I remembered, my girlfriend at the time was a bass player, and so she was about to enter this world after grad school. My aunt played in orchestras like this, and so all this sort of peripheral awareness. I was very happy that my alma mater got a shout out in the movie. So that was cool. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was, it's a very slow burn, but it's an incredibly performed thing. But I found the diving back into that world again so fascinating. And, the discussions that, that she has when she's, teaching at Juilliard with the, how do we treat the composer, because a lot of it is like, are we still going to allow old white guys to be relevant in orchestra, right? Well, that's the same thing as in our business and theater. It's the same.
Can you
same
listen to
in all
Michael
things.
Jackson anymore? Are
right.
these problematic people? Yeah.
How do we navigate that? And I thought it was a really interesting exploration of that. So it was, the only thing, and this is just because she's being forced to do a thing, like you can't fake it. The only thing that didn't stand up is her conducting, right? And which it's a really tough thing to do because you can't really hide it, right? You're being asked to like do something at the NHL level on camera when it's literally just waving your arms, and so the subtleties of it, like she did a really good job. She did a really good job, but she's not a conductor. So
yeah, for something that was so specifically about that, it isn't really like it's the technicality of it. The dialogue intimates that it is about, because she has many monologues about the specificity of what she's doing, and yet doesn't. But it's really not I mean, you forgive it unless you're like you're in that world. But
I feel they could have protected her a little bit more. But you kind of need to see her do it, right? And so, like, if you had to, cut, body double from behind, whatever. Like, I think that you add something, you lose something.
But my last
movie.
2 points I'll say on it. I thought the way I think I mentioned this last week, so the way they exposition dump at the beginning, as they're doing like an NPR interview, so they can give you all her background and stuff. I thought was just like way to get it all out there, but hide it that they're just exposition dumping. And in a 2 hour and 38-minute movie, it's like you could have spread it out, but they didn't need to do that because they dump it in the beginning. And secondly, you don't notice it, but like, so she has a gargantuan amount of dialogue to memorize for this movie. Now, usually there's so many cuts and movies are pieced together in a way that you almost, it's so much different than stage. It's not that she didn't memorize it, but you can composite a scene together if people go up or different takes. But there's so many one shots, like that scene we were just talking about when she's giving the master class and they're talking about, for lack of a better term, wokeness in classical music, and can we listen to these old composers and do their pasts? They were all screwed up people. Like, does that affect our current interpretation of them? That camera is tracking. That is all one shot. I mean,
Yeah, it's a play. She does a play for 15
yes,
minutes.
she's doing many plays. The opening sequence, which is 20 minutes, is all one shot. So anyway, it's a tour de force. If she doesn't win the Oscar, I will be below. I will eat my hat.
It's a remarkable performance for sure.
A challenging movie. Challenging.
Yeah,
So.
very challenging movie. And shout out to Sophie Cower, who is a cellist who played a cello and did all of her own playing and held up pretty credibly as an actress. So, well done.
All right, so I talked about my love for escape rooms. Keith wrote a musical about Murder, She Wrote. I have talked a lot on my the various shows we do, how much I love Columbo, how much I love even procedural dramas. However, I also mentioned recently that network detective shows and stuff, just network television they've gotten a little maudlin, in my opinion. Well, folks, Rian Johnson and showrunners, let me remember who the showrunners are. I apologize. Oh no.
I'll look it up.
Yes, you look it up.
Talk about more things.
So Natasha Lyonne, oh geez, I'm already blowing it. In Pokerface, Rian Johnson directs the first 2 episodes. He wrote the first few. It is a case of the week type murder mystery show.
Oh, interesting. I was going to ask about that.
Yes, and the general conceit is as follows. She doesn't have any superpower or whatnot. She was a gambler who ostensibly can sniff BS on people. She can tell when you're lying, Keith, which is why she was a great poker player. Now, through some machinations of the plot, she no longer gambles, and some things happen that put her on the road, ostensibly. Now, the show pays homage to many different things. There are tongue-in-cheek references to Murder, She Wrote. There are tongue-in-cheek references to Columbo. She plays a very Columbo-based character. And what I love about the show is that it's very much like the 70s Incredible Hulk, where Bill Bixby finds himself traveling from blue-collar town to blue-collar town because he can't stay in one place for too long. And Charlie, the protagonist here, finds herself in a similar situation. And in a very Murder, She Wrote type way, it happens that Keith, everywhere she goes, she finds herself in the center of a murder every week.
Goodness.
And one of the funny conceits of the show is, how does Charlie show up? And what they play with is they not just paying homage, but they flip the script every week. Sometimes the denouement, the reveal is at the beginning. We see the murder in the beginning, and then we track along as she figures it out. Sometimes we know exactly who done it right away. And the fun is, how is she involved? How does she get to where this murder took place? And as Rian Johnson tends to do with his Knives Out and his Glass Onions, it is very clever, and the reveals are very clever. My one criticism would be that the mysteries aren't always the most unique, right? But if you watch your Murder, She Wrote, sometimes they're not, right? Sometimes it's more just fun. And I think the first 2 episodes do not a disservice. The first 2 episodes give the impression that it's going to be a little more dramatic, but then it finds its comedic footing. Now, I have heard that Natasha Lyonne is an acquired taste for some. She's got a very specific thing she does, and it can rub some people the wrong way. Like, some people don't like Russian Doll because she's too much. She's just too much. It's like Fran Drescher in that way. She's got a very...
She's a lot.
She's a lot.
Yeah, but she's great. I like her.
I love her, so I can't really speak to that. I will say that this was written for her. I'm not sure if it actually was, but I suspect
probably
this was written for her because it highlights everything she does well. And the last thing I'll say is that, we just watched Fleischman is in Trouble, and a lot of television and movies right now the focus is kind of on a more affluent sect of our society. And this really focuses, the episodes are on it does have a 70s vibe, because a more blue collar focus on different characters. And I think it's just a side of television, a side of society we're not seeing a lot on television. And what's really awesome is that it allows, because it's Case of the Week, it allows for a new cast every week, new guest stars. The last episode, which aired, Judith Light in an absolutely scene-chewy, beautiful, funny, different character for her. Just great. Every episode has been excellent. There's an episode about grunge, metal, that they wrote a whole fake metal score for. It is just a hit on every level for me. They dropped the first 3 episodes up front, and then they're doing week to week to week subsequently. So by the time this airs, there will be 4 or 5 episodes out. So there's plenty to so you can sink your teeth into. I cannot recommend Pokerface on Peacock, if you have the Peacock, any higher. Keith, following that, I want to quickly talk about another show on
Nora Zuckerman and Lila Zuckerman.
Thank you so much.
The showrunners.
Thank you so much. Another show on the Peacock. This one is called The Calling. And Keith,
is that Cate Blanchett as well?
No.
Oh.
No.
Looks like her.
I have no comment to that.
It did, like facial structure.
Yeah, it's got that.
Like cover the hair. You could totally think that's Cate Blanchett.
Keith, this is an old friend of ours, because this one is produced by, conceived by, and created by none other than David E. Kelley.
Ah, David.
From so many things, but most famous for his award-winning inspiration of the podcast, the Out of Practice podcast, based on David E. Kelley's television series, The Practice.
200 some odd, like 400 hours of us talking about The Practice.
So imagine, if you will, if you took a show like The Practice, or your Law and Order, any of the 50 Law and Orders, and gave them more budget, had them serialized so that it was one case for an whole 8-episode arc, and allowed them really just more money, which is basically what this is. It has a very Law and Order vibe. It's very procedurally based. You know, it's a detective who is he is an Orthodox Jew, and that somewhat plays into his belief system as to why he's a good detective. He's sort of got this great ability to interrogate suspects. And there's a kidnapping. We don't know if it's a kidnapping. There's a missing kid, and we're in the search for this kid, and we meet him and his partner and the people working on it, and all of the suspects. Broadway veteran guy from Bridges, Madison County, Stephen Pasquale
Stephen Pasquale, yeah.
The dad of the kid, and he gives a great performance. And and you keep waiting because they keep playing it as if he has some sort of supernatural ability. Right, but he doesn't really. It turns out, he's just. The show is still finding itself. I'm 4 episodes deep, so I'm halfway through it. The pieces are there. The pieces are there, and it's a great mystery. The problem is that it feels to me as though it's trying very hard. Like he's a Bobby Donnell type who is overquirked. He draws to draw inspiration, and he holds people's hands to sort of empathize to find the person, and you think that you keep waiting for him to have some supernatural ability, but it doesn't really, and they keep pushing his religion like it means something, but then it's not really about that. And they spend a lot of time making all of the suspects very suspect, right? So every episode's like, oh, this guy did it, oh, she did it, and it just feels like it's trying very hard, and I want to love it. And we keep watching it because now we're hooked in and we need to know who done it. But it is, I'd love for you to watch an episode or two and let me know what you think, because I can't tell if I love it or I just want to love it.
You want to love it? Yeah.
Because I don't think it's good. Not that I'm talking about it out loud, it's like, I don't, but I want to know who did it. Anyways.
So, it's like the woman you meet at the bar, and she's really cute, but she's really extra, and you're like, I really want to make this work. This might get annoying.
Yeah. So has anybody watched it? Has anybody checked out The Calling on the Peacock? Let me know what you think, because I need my opinion to be clarified. So that's The Calling, Keith. If you had to choose between the two, 100% Pokerface. I'm 100% in. So that's The Calling, Keith. Let's go ahead and talk about last weekend.
Yeah.
And that Royal
Also
Rumble.
on the Peacock.
Yeah, Peacock is speaking our
Why
language.
isn't the Peacock? It should be sponsoring us,
They
or
should
at least upgrading me from the ad-supported to the ad-free version.
Yep. So the Royal Rumble, which is like one of the big three. Did we talk about this already? I feel like we talked about it. We said we were going to watch it.
We said we were gonna watch it. Yeah.
So it happened, and let me tell you, I'll just say I thought it was actually really good. It was for 3.5 hours of, and I have not been watching, so I didn't know any of the storylines, and nobody in the business does it better than doing like a video package to get you up to speed on the storylines. I thought they made some incredible decisions. I thought they paid off some storylines. They pitched some stuff going forward. Keith, what were your thoughts on the Royal Rumble?
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it too. I mean, it's I'm like you. I don't ever watch the TV. I watch the pay-per-views, and frankly, I don't watch the contemporary stuff at all.
Right. Yeah.
Like for me, I've gotten really into like the 80s and 90s and early 2000s as I'm sort of like catching myself up because I stepped into this world knowing literally nothing like 2 years ago. But I thought it was really satisfying. I like the Royal Rumble because it's so silly and
they
it's
know
so
it's
chaotic, and I because I'm obsessed with the behind the scenes stuff. I just liked how they constructed the story. I think that they did a good job. And you could see a couple of things got botched, but that's part of it. That's part of the fun. Is like, oh, that he was supposed to land on the chair. How'd that go? Didn't go.
Yeah, no.
Didn't happen.
But there's like a risk reward to that too, right? It's like, okay, if you land on the chair, then we have this whole bit plan. But if you F it up, well, okay, you got to go back and then you're done.
That's but that's the fun thing about live. I think I was expecting there to be, because at WrestleMania, right? Obviously, they're setting up the Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns is going to be the thing, and I think it's finally time to drop the belt and give it to Cody, right? Because I think that's been the plan since last WrestleMania,
Right.
And the only reason Roman didn't drop it earlier, like in England, that would have been a great time to have him do it. But
Well, it's because they got this bloodline story. It's so over and it's so fertile that they're just like, we got to run with this as long as we can.
well, for sure, and finding a way to continue that story by having what's his nuts join it and then leave it. I mean, what's his name?
Sami Zayn.
Sami Zayn. When Zayn finally did the inevitable chair shot, the pop that got
It exploded.
Oh my God. And
Because
and
they have
so
slow played it. They paced it like the old days. Like the old days, somebody held the belt for 2 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Or Marty Jannetty, like you knew that the Rockers were going to split at some point, but they teased it so long, and you just think we're grown men. There's no reason this should work, but they did it, and we were like, holy heck!
we all know
too.
exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We all know exactly. I mean, like it's like reading a children's book really slowly. Right, but you perform it really well. We all know that, the moon's going to say goodnight, right? But if you tell the story really, really well, you get the pop. It literally is goodnight moon level complexity, right? And
It's soap opera.
Like,
It's just a
as
soap
it's
opera.
happening, it's just like we all know it's a question of when does he turn, and like they're just upping the ante, upping the ante, upping the ante, and yet the pop that it got, it's just infectious.
And the way that they're still able to like stunt do some stuff, like they bring in that Jake, what's his name, the internet guy everybody loves to hate.
Oh, Jake Paul.
But look, they know everybody hates this guy. So what do? They have him be a baddie guy and like taunt the audience, and he does one spot, and then they kick his ass, and the place goes nuts. He's in on it. We're all in on it, but it's still satisfying. And when they do it right, it's hard to explain why it's compelling, but it's compelling.
It is really hard to explain why it's compelling, because as somebody who was never a wrestling person for the first 40 years of my life, and none of my friends other than like you and one other person, most of the people I know are like,
it's
what?
stupid. Yeah.
You're like, what? It's really hard to explain the appeal, but if you get it, you get it.
Yeah. And this was a good one. Now, this was an argument to me for two things. Keep it on Saturdays, first of all, right? And then you can
Yeah.
have your 4-hour event, and it's fine. I really don't like that they split WrestleMania into 2 days. It's too much. It's just too much. That's my opinion. I hope that maybe we learn from this. I thought, for the most part, it was good. Some of the matches didn't, like, they still don't know what to do with Bray Wyatt. I didn't love the glow-in-the-dark match. Like, it's all entry. Like, there needs to be more. The Uncle Charlie, whatever his name is, Uncle Ben. I'm not up on a lot of it. The Women's Rumble was
No.
okay. You know, like, I thought the
Yeah,
Rumble was the main, and the Sami Zayn thing was cool. I thought the final match was good too. It was fun. It was a fun night. It was great to hang out with my brother, and my friend Ronnie came over. We did it right.
Yeah, super fun. So we know what one main event for WrestleMania is going to be. I'm surprised we didn't get the return of the whomever, which is going to be, because is it going to be The Rock? Could they get Steve Austin to come back? It sounds like they couldn't. So I think they might be scrambling over there in Connecticut.
Bit. But they also have to have Roman drop one of the belts because they have to have 2 big main. I don't know, something.
Well, but like the main event is going to be Cody versus Roman, and Cody's going to take the belt. The question is, what's the other main event? It would usually, like, you have somebody come back, but all the biggies, right?
Well, I mean,
The Rock,
you got some
Stone
other
Cold.
options too, though. I mean, I think if you can course correct, there was such a reaction to the Sami Zayn flip. I don't know. Maybe you got to do something with that. And the Jay could feud with Roman, and maybe there's a lot you could still do. There's time.
Yeah, I suppose. Well,
We'll see.
there it is.
We'll check in
That's
April
really
when
far
we
in the
watch it
weeds,
again.
folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, when we do our WrestleMania show. I can't believe I'm saying those words.
Yeah, well,
But
we're
here
going to
we
have to
are.
do it. We're going to have to do it. It's true.
But yeah, I think it's. So two quick things before we go. One, last week I told the story of Charlie throwing a mouse at me.
Oh, yeah.
Last night, mission accomplished. He dispatched the mouse.
You know what? R.I.P.
so
Mouse. Thank you for your service.
I was playing with the dog, and like 11 o'clock at night, and he comes in all proud. He's got the mouse in his mouth. So there it is. And yeah, this will be our last episode before the Super Bowl. Mike, you got to give your prediction.
I can't believe I'm going to say these words, but I think we're the better team. I'm interested to see how Jalen's shoulder is. I'm interested to see how Patrick Mahomes is. May the better team win. I'm not going to make any excuses if we lose. I think we're the better team. I think we should win. I think we should win handily. I think if we run the ball like we ran last week, I think we slow them down enough. Mahomes' high ankle sprain is a tough injury.
Yeah.
The 49ers were in a bad shape QB. Patrick Mahomes is a freaking magician, so I am not underestimating him. I think we should run the ball down their throats, and I think we should win by 2 scores. I think we win by 14 points.
Wow.
But that would mean to me that the Eagles actually, a Philadelphia sports team, had an easy walk through the playoffs, which is a thing that is weird to even say. But hey, you know what? It's been a fun ride. So here we go.
There it is. I think I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk for either team.
It should be a good football game.
I honestly don't. I can't tell you who I think is going to win. I think they're really evenly matched. I think yes, the Eagles' running game is great, and yes, their defense is great. I think Kansas City counters with Travis Kelce.
That is a challenge.
That's the biggest piece of the equation because he's really hard. He's really hard to contain, and he might have like a 200-yard game, and that's what keeps.
That's why the first
Kansas
quarter is
City
important here, right? Like if Mahomes is clearly hobbled and cannot scramble, then you just stack everyone on Travis Kelce. If Mahomes can get out of the because if we're dropping people to cover the tight end and Mahomes has time to dink and dank and move and is able to be mobile, we are in trouble. But if he's not, I think we can just stack people on Kelce. Will that matter? I don't know. Our secondary has been up and down, so we'll see.
You can. I mean, what Philly has that Kansas City does not have is a wide receiver who can go over the top.
Yeah.
Kansas City not having Tyreek Hill anymore, that's the biggest factor. I think that the difference in it. But they are really good at the tight end position. They're really good at throwing to backs out of the backfield.
Yep.
If Kadarius Toney could get his one catch before he goes down with another injury, Giants fan. So Gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a hell of a game.
We should
I
be
think
the
it's gonna
healthier
an
team.
amazing
That's
game.
I think they're evenly matched. I think we're the healthier team going in. That can all change very quickly. So
Yeah.
we will see. It's going to be exciting. I'm just excited the fact that like in my lifetime now, and with my wife and my nieces and nephews, I've now seen 2 World Series. This is my second Super Bowl, chance to win a second Super Bowl. And you know, I'm going to say it, Keith. You've married in, and I'm a shill, of course, right? But here's the thing: you hear a lot of crap about Philadelphia sports fans. It is not that. I know the 49ers are crying and all this. Listen, we are passionate people. I can't wait. You will get a live K&M Geekly from the Eagles parade if we win, because I will be going down there, greased poles and all.
Go eat some horse poop.
So if you want to just see whatever insanity that's going to be, root for the Eagles this weekend just for that. Or if you want to just like talk S in the comments if we lose, you're free to do that too. It's YouTube. So Keith, speaking of fans though, Philly sports fans I think are incredible, but I think we have better fans, Keith.
We do.
Tell us who our fans are.
Well, we have fans who are financially supporting the show in exchange for extra nonsense, like getting extra whiz on your Philly cheesesteak. You get extra nonsense at patreon.com/K&M, and you can join Brian Kaufman, Casey Clark, Jason Moe, Andrew Hayes, Jorge Navoa, and the mysterious Worf's Bootshivs, CRM Productions, Charles Babbage, Nikolai Ivanovich Lobachevsky at Grim Toys, and Delusions at noon.
Join them at patreon.com/K&M. Check out our TikTok, which is at Star Trek Toys, because we do a Star Trek show where we look at Keith's Star Trek toys and all of the custom work getting out there. We also do a show called Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine, where, shocker, Keith and I watch every episode of Deep Space Nine and talk about our thoughts and feels about it. It is what a hoot. So check that out. We thank you for your support. We thank you for joining Geekly. And let me tell you, in the interim, until we see you again, folks, which I hope is very soon, do not let anyone yuck your yum. Keep doing all of the things you find fun and keep on geeking up.